It started on a quiet Friday morning in our little gated community, a place where everything was supposed to be peaceful, perfect, and predictable. I'd retired from law enforcement years ago and moved here to enjoy the quiet life. The HOA was strict, sure, but I mostly stayed out of their business. I had no idea that peace was about to explode, literally, because of one arrogant security guard and my daughter's unannounced visit. I was out in my garage fixing up my old Ford when I saw a black SUV pull up at the front gate. It wasn't unusual. Delivery trucks, contractors, or visitors came and went all the time, but this one stopped for a while. The gate didn't open. Then I heard the faint crackle of raised voices. I figured it was just another HOA dispute until I heard shouting. Curious, I grabbed my cap and walked toward the gate. As I got closer, I saw the HOA's head of security, Ron, a man who took his authority way too seriously, standing there with his hand on his holster, yelling at a woman standing by the SUV. My heart froze when I realized who it was. It was my daughter, Emily. She'd come home early from a work trip, but she wasn't just any visitor. Emily was a field agent with the FBI. From the look on her face, I could tell she was trying to stay calm. She had her badge in one hand and her phone in the other. "Sir," she said firmly, "I'm visiting my father. He lives at 104 Cypress Drive. Here's my ID." Ron crossed his arms. "I don't care what kind of badge that is, ma'am. You're not getting in without an approved visitor form." Emily sighed. "This is federal identification. I'm not here on official business. I'm just visiting." He sneered. "Lady, I don't care if you're the president. No pass, no entry." Now, that would have been bad enough, but then he made the mistake that would change everything. Emily tried to take a step forward to show her credentials more clearly, and Ron suddenly pulled his gun. "Back up. Step away from the vehicle," he barked. My blood went cold. I shouted, "Ron, what the hell do you think you're doing?" and sprinted toward the gate. He spun around, startled. "Sir, please stay back. This woman's trying to force entry." "Force entry," I said, my voice rising. "That's my daughter." He blinked, clearly not expecting that. Emily lowered her hands, still calm but her eyes blazing. "Dad," I showed him my badge and he pulled a weapon on me. Ron didn't budge. Could be fake. People print badges off the internet these days. Emily let out a small laugh, the kind that said she'd dealt with idiots like this before. "You can call the FBI field office in DC right now. They'll confirm." But Ron was too deep in his ego trip. "Ma'am, I don't need to call anyone. You need to leave before this becomes trespassing." By now a small crowd of neighbors had gathered. Phones were out. People whispered. I could feel my anger boiling. I said quietly, "Ron, I'm only going to tell you this once. Put your weapon down." He hesitated. "Sir, with all due respect." "Put it down." There was something in my tone that made him listen. Old habits die hard. I'd been a police captain before I retired, and I guess it came through. He slowly holstered his gun. Emily stayed composed, but her hand subtly rested near her hip holster too. Once the situation cooled, Emily said evenly, "You just pulled a firearm on a federal agent for trying to visit her father." He scoffed. "How was I supposed to know that?" "Because," I said, stepping closer, "she showed you her ID before you pulled the gun." He rolled his eyes. "The HOA policy is clear, no exceptions. I was following orders." "Orders," I said, "don't excuse stupidity." At that, Emily took out her phone and called someone. "Yes, Agent Taylor here. I'm reporting an incident of unauthorized use of a firearm against a federal officer." Ron's face went white. "Wait, what are you doing? You can't." "Oh, I can," she said coldly. "You brandished a gun against an identified agent. That's a federal offense." Within 15 minutes, 2 sheriff's units rolled up to the gate, lights flashing. The HOA president, a woman named Sharon, came rushing out in her golf cart, her face pale as chalk. "What's going on here?" she asked. Emily showed her badge again. Your guard just pointed a loaded firearm at me after I identified myself. Sharon looked horrified. Ron, tell me that's not true. Ron stammered. She looked suspicious. Big SUV, tinted windows, how was I supposed to know? You were supposed to use your brain, I snapped. The sheriff deputies took statements while the HOA board members stood there awkwardly. Emily's ID checked out immediately, obviously, and within half an hour, Ron was handcuffed and being read his rights. He sputtered, "This is ridiculous. I was just doing my job." Your job doesn't include pulling a gun on people without probable cause, Emily said sharply. When the dust settled, the HOA president tried to apologize. We had no idea he'd take things that far. He'll be terminated immediately. Emily gave her a tight smile. Good, because if this went to court, your HOA would be liable for hearing an untrained armed guard. By the next morning, the story had spread across the entire community. The HOA issued an official apology letter to every resident, claiming it was a misunderstanding. But the sheriff's office didn't see it that way. Ron lost his security license permanently. Later that night, as Emily and I sat on the porch drinking coffee, I asked, "You think I should have stepped in sooner?" She smiled. "No, Dad, you did exactly what I would have done. He just picked the wrong person to mess with." We laughed, but I couldn't help thinking about how bad it could have been. A trigger-happy guard, a misunderstanding, and my daughter caught in the middle. The next week, the HOA announced they'd be hiring a new security team, this time unarmed and properly trained. Sharon came by personally to apologize again, her voice shaky. "We had no idea your daughter was, well, you know." "An FBI agent," Emily said with a grin. "Yeah, most people don't." Sharon smiled nervously. "We hope there are no hard feelings." Emily just looked her dead in the eyes and said, "There are none, unless your next guard points another gun at me." Sharon gulped and quickly changed the subject. Since then, the HOA has been very, very polite. The guards wave every time they see my car, and they don't question visitors anymore, especially SUVs. As for Emily, she likes to joke that she made more impact in one afternoon than I did in my whole retirement. And maybe she's right, because now, every time the HOA board meets, there's a new sign at the entrance that reads, "No weapons permitted by security staff. Federal policy compliance required." Guess they learned the hard way that sometimes the visitor isn't just anybody. Sometimes she's the daughter of the man who helped write the law.